Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us for our weekly Spotlight on History. I'm Helen, Curator of the Manassas Museum System, and today, May 27th, I'm going to share with you the first in a two-part series that I'm going to offer about trains. Yes, that's right, trains, one of the more popular topics with many local residents. We have our own train depot here, and that's where we're going to be next week, but today we're in the museum galleries. I chose this topic because in 2 weekends it's normally our annual railway festival that the city hosts, but unfortunately because of the pandemic that was canceled this year. So we can still enjoy a few minutes together and see some neat train-related things from our collection. Now I'm dressed for the occasion today in this super cool t-shirt right here. It says Loco for Locos on it. You can get one of your very own t-shirts like this in Echoes, the Manassas Museum store. All you have to do is go online and order. We have not just this t-shirt, but lots of other cool things as well. So check that out on our website. An added bonus for those of you that live in the city of Manassas, we will deliver for free right to your door, contactless delivery. So if you don't want to come out, we're not actually open to the public, but if you don't want to pay for shipping, we can bring it to you at no charge. Again, you have to be a city resident to take advantage of that. So today, I'm going to start off with a little quiz with some trivia, because that's what we history curators like to do, talk about trivia. So, did you know that Manassas kind of got its start because of the railroad? Manassas is considered a railroad town. Not many people know that. They're surprised to hear that. So that's right. This town grew up around the junction of two important railroad lines. The Manassas Gap Railroad, which connected Manassas with the Shenandoah Valley to the west, and the Orange and Alexandria Railroad that connected us to Alexandria to the north. So this town, Manassas, came into being at the junction of those two rail lines. Now, towns in the 18th and 19th centuries usually had some strong connection to a form of travel. Earlier towns, before the invention of trains, were on rivers. That's why so many of Virginia's earliest settlements occurred on waterways when you think about areas like Richmond, Alexandria, and Norfolk. Now, I live in Fredericksburg, just down the road from here, and that town got its start along the banks of the Rappahannock River. So it was a water town. It grew up around the river. That's how it got started. Now, when the train came through Fredericksburg then became more of a railroad town, and the river faded in importance. So that's kind of an example there of two different things. Now, Manassas does not sit on a major waterway. It never did. So it got its start later when the railroad lines were laid through here. Now, why do you think that is? Out there in Facebook land. Well, one of the answers is, and why were towns located on either waterways or later railroads? One answer is the shipping that trains provided. Boats and trains were able to move large amounts of goods and people into and out of areas before the times of vehicles. So it all had to do with commerce. That's what you want to see. Okay, so now that we've had that brief bit on trains, for those of you that are not train enthusiasts, now you know some cool train trivia to take to your next party. Let's turn to one of the pieces that's here behind me. So this large brass bell, at least I'm going to duck back in front of you, Lisa Siebelot, our fabulous camera person. This brass bell right here came off of a steam locomotive, a train that probably came through Manassas. I don't know the exact history of this bell because the file we have on that is silent, but this is a brass bell off of a steam locomotive. So it looks pretty big, right? That's a pretty big looking bell. It's heavy, that's for sure. So for those of you that think that's big, I want to point out to you this, see if our pointer's working here. Is our pointer working? So this image behind me is of a steam locomotive here in Manassas. You see the man standing on the front of it, that's a cow catcher. Right here, in this green circle, I'm on it right now, is a brass bell. That's exactly like the original bell that we have sitting here on the platform. Now look at that compared to this huge smokestack and this man and this gigantic train. Doesn't look so big now, does it? So that kind of puts things into perspective. This train bell is one of my favorite railroad-related pieces that we have. They're not hard to come by, but they're just really neat because they're fun to listen to. This one, we don't have the clapper in a position where it can ring, but they have a great sound to them. And so when you see these out, this is what bells were employed before the use of whistles on trains. So when you had the steam locomotives, you'd have this bell right here and a line, and it looks like the line right there. I know you all will be able to see that on Facebook Live. there was a line or a rope that connected the bell to the engineer that sat up in the front part of the train, in the engine cab. And when he came to a crossing or near a town and he wanted to alert people to the coming of the train, he would pull the bell, or he would pull the rope and ring the bell. And so that's what we had before the advent of whistles. Now you hear all that when trains come through Manassas, it sounds a little bit different. But early people that lived here would have heard this bell. So that's kind of a neat piece here. Now, as an extra treat for today, I've pulled 3 things from our storage facility here on the table to share with you. The first is this stack of freight bills that you see right here from the Southern Railway Company. That was the name of the train that serviced Manassas. And as I mentioned earlier, trains were a great way to ship goods. These receipts are all from October 1913, and they list different things that were arriving here, mostly from Alexandria. So what we have listed on these, and it's hard to read because it's in pencil, it took me a while to puzzle most of this out. These receipts list, among other things, crockery, drugs, cabbage, linoleum, calico, and other fabrics, notions, lots of small arms ammunition, and dry goods. So you can kind of see on this freight bill, here it has freight bill at the top, Southern Railway Company there on the left. The billing station, ALEX, is Alexandria, and that's where most of them came from. And then they listed out what arrived on this particular freight bill, number 88, and then this is all the values of everything. So we have close to 100 of these in our collection, all from various years, all from the Southern Railway here in Manassas that list these types of goods. Now, not only do they show a great snapshot of what was arriving in Manassas just prior to World War I, but they also show how people were getting things here in Manassas. Now, how do you think these things might arrive in Manassas today? So think about that for a second. When you think about, you go to the store and you're in Walmart or Target and you're getting things off the shelf, how do they get here? So, of course, most of you probably can guess. The answer to that is by truck. These large semis that are ever present on our area roads that we see as we go up and down the interstate and here in town. But over 100 years ago, that was not an option. And so if you wanted stuff, it arrived here by train. And this was a very, very busy shipping depot over here at the train station. So this kind of talks about our history as with freight trains. Now, we still have a freight train that goes through here today. Many of you may see it. It's the, I'm not sure what line that is, CSX might be, that comes through Manassas. You hear them coming through. They have a heavier sound than the passenger trains that come through. The freight that comes through here is not like this. You see a lot of coal trains coming through and other things that are being shipped in enclosed cars. So shipping does still happen by train, but they don't stop here and unload like they used to. Now, not only did we have freight trains, but believe it or not, people commuted on the train here. So for all you commuters out there that take the train, or used to take the train before the time of pandemic, you understand what that's like to get up early and to rush down here and catch the VRE train. Well, back then people rode on the Southern Railway from here up into Washington, D.C., just like people do today, to commute to their jobs. But they rode on the Southern Railway freight train that had a passenger car or two attached to it. So the train would stop. It wasn't a separate train. It was just one train that carried people and freight. It kind of had, I don't know if it was a nickname, but I've read about the milk train that would leave from here. Because Manassas, of course, for those of you that know, was a very large agricultural area with an emphasis on dairy products. And so it got the nickname from locals as the milk train. So people would go back and forth on the commuter train, and one of those people that commuted every day was Albert Speiden. And he was a local architect here. We're going to do a program at some point in the near future on the many buildings that he designed. But his offices were in Washington, D.C. And he commuted back and forth every day on the train. And we have a lot of his tickets. They did have commuter tickets, just like they do today. They just look a little bit different. Here's one that says the Southern Railway Company, 52-trip commutation ticket for A. Speiden to go between Washington, D.C. and Manassas. And they would punch out the dates and the months. So you can see this is from 1904. So a long time ago, 116 years ago, people commuting on the train. And you can see he didn't quite use all of this for whatever reason. And we have a lot of these in our collection and in our files. So it's kind of a neat little Albert Speiden story. Now, his daughter, Virginia, that lived here, loved to talk about her father taking the train, and she talks about how he could where they lived over on Battle Street. When he heard the train whistle, if he ran fast enough from the house, he could get there and no problem to meet the train. But one of her other favorite memories of her father that she talked about, and one of my favorites that she shared in an interview, is this. My father commuted back and forth on the train. One night he came back and was quite elated because he had seen Colonel John S. Mosby on the train. He was a great admirer of Mosby. So Albert Speiden, a great admirer of Mosby, ran into him. For those of you that don't recognize the name Colonel John Mosby, he was one of the more flamboyant members of the Confederate Army under Robert E. Lee and commanded an irregular group of cavalry officers that operated in this area, nicknamed the Gray Ghost. And so he apparently was on the train from Manassas, and Albert Speiden ran into him. So not so far removed from the Civil War at that time. Now, the last thing that I want to show you today, and remember, these spotlights on history are meant to be quick, less than 10-minute talks. So for those of you that tune in, there's a reason why they're brief. Is this fantastic 4-car wooden train that's here on the table. I'll move some of these out of the way so Lisa can get a good look at this. This is a handmade train made by Albert Speiden in 1918. Again, Albert Speiden, the same man we've been talking about. He made this for his son Edwin as a Christmas gift. So you'll see one car is labeled baggage on it, 1918, and then we also have a Southern Railway on one car, and we have an engine. So this piece is handmade. It's made of wood. It's in great shape. We used to have this on display at the museum, but it is no longer on exhibit. But we wanted to pull it out for you today because it's just a really fantastic little piece that's local to Manassas, and it's only one of a kind. People do collect trains, and we do have some train models and sets in our collection, but for this one, there's only one of these. Now this is a pull toy, so once he got it all connected up the way he wanted it, he could pull it along with this original string and little metal ring right here. And this was probably a very cherished gift. You can see the wear and tear on the paint for this thing, so we think that he probably spent many hours playing with this train, just like the one his father took every day when he went up to DC on his own train. So that's a quick thing about trains. Now next week, please join us again next Wednesday. We are going to hopefully be over at the historic train depot just across the street. We have to be able to get keys to the building and get in because, you know, all these buildings are closed for the pandemic. But we're going to go over there because not only is that a working depot, but that building has a great exhibition in it that's part of our museum exhibitions called On the Tracks of History. And I want to share some of the pieces in there with you so you can see some more train-related stuff next week, also still in honor of the canceled Railway Festival. So again, if you have any types of programs that you want to know more about, please comment. I'm checking back in the comments. We haven't gotten any so far, but I'm going to continue to offer it. I'm happy to do programs like this on request. So if you have a particular piece or a particular topic about Manassas history, please put it in the comments and we'll get to you as soon as we can. So I'm Helen Dellinger, and I'll see you again next week.